Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SavvyCast. This is Jamie, and I'm delighted that you're joining today, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast. I am delighted today to have a repeat guest that was extremely popular the first time. I have my friend Gary Leavitt. He is the president of Nutrimill, and he is an expert on all things making bread, grinding your own flour, all the things. And I first want to say, Gary, thank you so much. You're a busy man, and I thank you for carving out time to come to the SavvyCast for an encore.
I'm always happy to be with you, Jamie. Thank you.
All right, everyone, I just told Gary that I get lots of DMs, or have since our first podcast, particularly on Instagram, from some busy people, and we're all busy, but who say, give us the very basics if we don't want to invest or can't invest this huge amount of time and buy everything at the outset. So that's where we're going to start. And Gary, first, I want you to reintroduce yourself and then tell us Nutrimill in a nutshell, because
Okay.
it's been a while. So you're the president of Nutrimill. What is Nutrimill? And just give us a reminder.
Well, we're a company that's been focused on really trying to get people involved in health and nutrition for many, many years. We started out as a company called Magic Mill back in 1974, a direct sales company selling grain mills and bread makers. And we've evolved a lot since then. We had one stone grinding mill in 1974 and one bread maker, which was the Bosch mixer out of Germany. We still have the Bosch mixer out of Germany. We've been the exclusive distributor for all these years in all of North America, US and Canada. But now we're really into the grain mill business. We have 3 grain mills. We're going to launch a 4th one this fall. Without trying to make it sound like it's wonderful, what's a small town near you?
A small town near me would be Tuscaloosa, where I'm
Okay, so
Craftsville.
Tuscaloosa. So we're the largest seller of grain mills in the world, which is equivalent to being the tallest building in Tuscaloosa. So no, if Tuscaloosa was a small town with not small buildings, grain milling is a niche business. Okay,
Got it.
it's growing like crazy. Since the pandemic, 400% growth in grain mills. People are really wanting to get back to basics, and they want to know what their family's eating. They really want to know, what am I feeding myself, my kids, my husband, my neighbors, and when I'm taking them a loaf of bread, and welcoming a new child into their family, or whatever the occasion, they really want to know. And there's so much that goes into that these days, but we are just focused on our first mission statement was appliances and products for better health. And that's probably, we've changed mission statements over the years, but that really is it in a nutshell. Appliances and products for better health.
I've got both of your grain mills, and I also have the Magimix toaster, which I cannot rave about that toaster enough. It is the most beautiful, functional. It's wide. Oh, y'all, if you are in need of a toaster. Oh, by the way, you have offered, thank you, Nutrimill has offered a discount. The code and all that will be in the show notes. But Gary, let's just start, because I have 2 daughters and they want to make fresh bread, or they want me to make fresh bread. So I've got everything. But let's say there's a person out there, okay, I want to do this. I want to do this. What's the one thing they have to have?
When you're starting out in this business, Jamie, and what I'm talking about, your home business of providing food for your family, because people don't realize, whether it's the mom or the dad or whoever is the caretaker of the children, it's a business that you are raising a family. What are you feeding them? How do you want them to be when they're your age, my age? How do you want their health to be? And it's all a matter of what you put in front of them at the dinner table. If you're going to start making bread, the first thing you want to start with is fresh flour. That's really the important ingredient. And I would say that there's and I don't know, do you affiliate with any grain companies now?
Well, I sometimes get from Azure Standard. I've gotten from Grand Teton, but that was going to be a question. I get that all the time.
Azure Standard has some good grains, Palouse grains out of eastern Idaho, but look for organic. We have lots of wheat. In fact, grain grinders really are commonly known as wheat grinders. We mostly consume wheat in this country. Most of the world, other than Asia, consumes wheat as their primary grain. But look for organic because
Always. Even with your berries.
with your berries, it's really important because so many grains now are sprayed. The fields are sprayed with glyphosates. Think Roundup and all the lawsuits in Roundup. So look for organic because people are starting to see, well, I'm gluten intolerant and I don't tolerate breads and I don't tolerate this. And it's not because, mostly it's because of two things, either the chemicals that those grains were sprayed with or an overabundance in their diets of white flour, because white flour takes all the nutrients out and leaves you just with the endosperm, which is the protein, but it takes all the vitamins and minerals and trace minerals and essential oils, vitamin E oils. That's all gone. And so now our bodies are just being inundated with white flour and we're rebelling against that. But fresh flour, there's a million ways to get it. You can get it very inexpensively. You can buy a grain mill out of Europe right now for $800 and they're beautiful, but you can also buy a little hand grinder for $59.95 or $79.95 and grind enough to make bread. So I don't think people need to go outside of their budget necessarily, but fresh flour is really the key to bread.
Okay, Gary, can you, for these show notes, just give us a few places online for people who maybe live in a remote area or they just want the convenience of a place that you can get berries and a place that you can get, and this is probably a question. When you say fresh flour, if you're not going to buy the berries to start with and you want to buy the freshest flour possible, where would you go?
The berries, you mentioned Azure Standard. They are a great resource and they have a lot of good organic grains. Palouse grains is the same, a great resource with organic grains, and they will deliver to your front door.
How do you spell that?
Palouse.
Okay, I'm going to really let everyone know I love Azure Standard, but
Me too.
you have to meet somewhere wherever the drop is. It's part of your day, and you have to, you
You
know.
have to plan for that, but they
That's
have
right.
wonderful grains and they're a wonderful company. We are in homesteader shows with them all the time and they're wonderful people.
Yeah.
Palouse is the same, and you'll find Palouse grains on our website as well. And you can just order them, have them drop shipped right to your front door.
Okay, I was just on your website once again, and where on your website is that?
Go to mills and then all the way down to grains and or just type in the search engine Palouse,
Okay.
Palouse.
Okay.
Now, as far as buying fresh flour, health food stores will be your freshest flour, but you have to buy from the refrigerated section and you have to really look at the mill dates because otherwise you're going to have anything that's on a shelf, just by nature of it being on a shelf, the vitamin E's and the oils, the essential oils are taken out of it. Otherwise, it's not shelf stable.
What the hell? I've never seen flour in a health food store. Are you thinking of certain ones? Can you?
Well, I'm thinking of Whole Foods,
Oh, okay. Well,
Sprouts,
okay.
those kinds of places, natural grocers. We have a Sprouts and a natural grocers here in our city. We have to go to Las Vegas to get into a Trader Joe's or a Whole Foods, but we can, and they're better than the alternative, but there's nothing like milling it and baking it. Just there's nothing like it.
Okay, well, and I agree with you. So, to all those who are maybe skeptical, thinking I don't have time, I can't do it, I just want to say, if you the to me the number one obstacle that you have to overcome, and if you can overcome this, it's so easy. Have a place where it stays out. Don't if you That's the number one. If you have a place for your grain mill and your berries, that's the problem solved, and it takes less than 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5
You
minutes.
can make you can make a batch of bread that would fit in, and my reference point is always a Bosch mixer or our artiste mixer, which are very similar. You can do 10 loaves of bread, the little 1 pound loaves. You can do 4 to 5 large loaves of bread and mill enough flour for those in under 6 minutes. And it's fresh. And if you don't want to mill every time you make bread, but you're going to make it a couple of times a week or a few times a week or whenever you make it, then what you want to do is mill it, put it in a sealed bag, and keep it in the freezer. It'll store really well in the freezer for up to 20, 25 days without losing your oils going rancid or losing your nutrients.
25 days in the freezer.
Yeah, I don't like to leave it more than that for me personally. For me, the reason to mill wheat is the nutrition. And when you're talking about that much nutrition, 26 vitamins and minerals, tons of trace minerals, all your vitamin E oils, all of your bran, all of your fiber, I want to keep that. And so the fresher it is, the healthier it is. That's just that simple.
Okay, see, Gary, I'm so glad you brought all that up. I guess I didn't realize that vitamin E, that which is an essential vitamin, comes.
Very essential.
Oh my god! So it comes from grain.
Yes, and you know what they do when they make white flour? I wish I had my little grain display kit here. I'm almost tempted to run and get it. But it's upstairs. If you look at what they do with a kernel of wheat with 26 vitamins, minerals, essential oils, all the bran, all the fiber, all of the nutrients and trace minerals, to strip it down to white flour, they sell the bran to the health food industry. They sell the middlings to the cattle industry. They sell the vitamin E oil to the cosmetic and the health food industries. And then they get down and they sell you white flour that is no nutrition and it won't sustain life. You go into a grocery store and you're not buying flour. What are you buying? What does it say on the bag? Enriched
Enriched,
flour. And it's either bleached or unbleached, enriched flour because the government stepped in late, early 1900s, late 1800s, I can't remember, and said, if you don't add nutrients back to this, you can't sell it anymore. It's not sustaining life, and people are getting sick. It wouldn't sustain the life of a rat. And so then they had the X on the bag, and then the 2X and the 3X. And all that was when they kept removing things so that they could transport it longer distances. And so it was shelf stable. They had to get rid of the oils or your flour was rancid within a month. And all of those things.
oh my goodness. Okay, see, this is motivating me even more. Okay, Gary, let me ask you this because I've been on your website and I go to your website all the time, but I went on your website. You have some fabulous recipes, and the carrot cake recipe, literally, I'm making it. It looks like so. But my question is, on your website where you've got the recipe, where it says X amount of whole wheat pastry flour, X amount of unbleached flour, on your website, are you assuming that that is freshly milled flour?
If you have the right equipment, you can do. We get questions all the time. I want pastry flour. Well, pastry flour is kind of known as a 00 flour. You can sift it yourself, but you have to have the right sifting screens. You can sift bran out, and then you can sift middlings out, and then you can sift other things. But if you sift enough fineness, you can get pretty much white flour out of whole grains. Then you can add your other things that you sift out into soups and salads and cakes and cookies and whatever you want to do. A lot of people make their own bran flakes for breakfast cereal by sifting out the bran. You still get the other nutrients that you can't sift oils out of flour.
Right.
Sift the trace minerals out of flour. What they want is light, fluffy stuff like they buy in the store. Well, that is so unhealthy. And that's why people are gluten intolerant. Unless you have celiac disease, there's no reason somebody can't tolerate whole grains. You have to
Okay.
get used to them.
Okay. So, given that someone says, "Okay, I'm going to start and I'm going to grain my own flour or mill my own flour." So, first thing you now, I know we've just had a discussion about back in Jesus' day, and would you give that yeah, because I love that about it when you're in Israel, because we know back in the day, they didn't have grain mills, but tell us about your Israel, trips.
Well, they did have grain mills. Every society truly has had grain
Oh,
mill,
version. Okay.
some version of a grain mill. And I've traveled to Israel 3 times. I wish I could go back as soon as things settle down. It's one of my first trips I'm going to take because I love that land.
Mm, yes.
I took pictures all over Israel. Every time we would go to an excavation site, one of the things they uncover is the communal grain mill. Some of them were small, some of them were big, and they had places where you could turn it either by an ox or some animal, or you could turn some of them by hand. And it's just a stone mill. It's just 2 stone mills, and they would gather the flour, and people would take it and bake their bread. For the Jewish people in those ancient times, bread was their staple. You know, there's a reason that God said, when he kicked Adam and Eve out of the garden, and he said, by the sweat of thy brow wilt thou eat thy bread all the days of your lives. And we've been making bread since civilization began. And it is known as the staff of life.
Mm,
White bread is not the staff of life. A loaf of Wonder Bread is one of the worst things you can do to your family. It literally is just poisoning them so that later in life, look at what we're dealing with these days, Jamie. We've got cancer rates that are still spiraling, obesity, all of these things, and it's all related to what we put in our mouths.
wow.
So I was taking pictures of grain mills basically from the Sea of Galilee all the way down to Bethlehem. Every community in those times had a communal grain mill.
Okay, that is amazing, and they were stones. You said they were made of stones, and my particular actually, my, daughter, I sent her home with the classic to try with some berries. I said, "Give this a try, see if you'll keep it up." But my, harvest is the stone mill, and can you just explain that?
Stone mills were the standard in the world since civilization began. Stone mills were how we ground flour. In 1979, the Magic Mill Company came out with the world's first high-speed mill. And that's what your classic is a high-speed mill. It's a very interesting contraption.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Instead of grinding grains between 2 stones, and steel plates are used in commercial milling. And instead of grinding between stones and steel, there's a chamber that have 100 teeth here and 100 teeth here. This one rotates inside, but the teeth don't touch. It's called an implosion chamber. When the grain drops in and goes through all these teeth, it explodes it into flour. Well, what we found out was it was cooler, healthier, cleaner, self-cleaning mills. Um, it just gave us every advantage. There were 26 manufacturers of stone mills, including Magic Mill. We had the number one selling stone mill in North America when we developed high-speed milling. And at that time, those 26 companies were all varying sizes and different shapes and different types of mills. 1 year after the high-speed milling came out, there were 3 left. Everything switched to high-speed milling. Okay.
You prefer high-speed milling to the stone?
That's the crux of the whole thing. Stone mills are wonderful for a lot of things. High-speed milling are wonderful for a lot of things. High-speed milling, we sell to people who are baking a lot and who are making bread every day, every week, and feeding their families a lot of homemade baked goods. Stone mills are more versatile. High-speed mills, you only get flour. Now you can sift it into pastry flour, but you can't get past a coarse flour. Stone mills, you can get cracked wheat,
Cornmeal?
cornmeal. You can get all the other things you want, and you can get it in smaller quantities when you need a cup of barley flour to thicken soup. Just throw a little bit down in your stone mill, and you have barley flour in 40 seconds.
Love my stone mill, and it's the prettier of your machines. I mean,
By far.
it's
It's the fastest growing mill ever in our history. I'll just give you a quick thing. We're pretty much sold out right now because the raw materials, we're getting bamboo out of Vietnam. We're getting the stones out of Germany because Germans make the best stones. But we're building them here in our little town of St. George, Utah. Well, sometimes raw materials. Well, we have not anticipated the absolute insane demand for these mills. We were out of stock since before Christmas. We just got 2,000 in. We started building them. We got, I think, 600 put on the website. They were gone in 40 minutes.
You're talking about the one I have.
Yes. And
Oh.
so now we've put the other 1,000 or so on, saying it'll ship on, later dates. And we've already sold half of those, and we don't know what to do because we're not getting bamboo again for another 30 days. So it's crazy.
I mean, let me grab mine really quickly. This is so beautiful. Like literally, even if I didn't, I would want this in my look how gorgeous this is. The bamboo, and you get to choose your color right there. So Gary, so you're saying these are very hard to get right now because
Right
of
now, they're extremely difficult. Our supply chains have been disrupted for lots of reasons. Worldwide supply chains are under a lot of pressure right now, and we're no exception. And we sell those in what, 5 or 6 colors, and there was no way for us to anticipate the demand for stone mills again right now because so many people, we used to have families of 4, 5, 6, 8 kids. A family less than 4 kids was rare in the 60s when I was growing up.
right.
Now, there's a lot of 2 people families, 1 child, 2 child, and they just want flour on demand, and cracked wheat for breakfast cereal, maybe put some oats in it and mill them really coarse for like steel cut type of oats for breakfast. And they're not making 24 cups of flour twice a week.
Well, and I'm that one that I'll make it, maybe one week I'll make bread, then it may be 2 more weeks, and I just have this right there.
Yeah, exactly.
On your website, it's got like 8 different berries. And you make the healthy whole wheat flour, and it's got
Yeah, 7 grain mix is
7
really
grain mix.
popular. Yeah, you can add some wheat, some oats, some rye, some barley. But it's in varying amounts. Keep in mind, when you're making bread and you need that bread to rise, a percentage of it, more than 60% generally has to be wheat because
Oh,
that's where your gluten is.
okay.
We'll say, "Oh, gluten, I hate gluten, gluten intolerance." Gluten is such a wonderful thing, and people need to understand that gluten is their friend. But if it's coupled with the vitamins and the minerals, the trace minerals, the oils, it is highly digestible. They have said there's a reason that the Bible calls wheat the staff of life, because you can survive well and have good health if you have wheat and any dairy or bean product, because there's only 2 amino acids that wheat lacks for being a complete protein. And those 2 are found in any dairy product or any legume. So I always add 2 cups of white navy bean flour to my bread. Now I have a complete protein bread, and it's so healthy. And there's nothing healthier than fresh bread. And when people say, well, it upsets my stomach, okay, then get used to it a little bit at a time, but only use whole grains. White flour is why our stomachs are upset. And the glyphosates, we're talking about what they spray grains with now. Make sure you're buying organic, because the glyphosates are not good for our stomach. They're not good for our health. And they know they can, it's like all these Roundup commercials. If you have been exposed to Roundup, call us. There's a $30 billion fund. Well, that's what they were spraying grain fields with.
Okay, this is again motivating me just like your first podcast did. Now, I want to ask you, okay, for those who aren't going to make the like I'm going to make that the 7 grain, but I've got all the space for it. If you're going to just make basic freshly milled flour that you're going to use in all your recipes and you're going to follow recipes just out of your normal cookbooks and you're going to substitute freshly milled for white or whole wheat, am I correct that you only need to buy 2 berries, white and red?
White and red berries. That's right. And they're basically the same thing, but one is the there's so many varieties of wheat. We could talk for a week about the different varieties of wheat and what you can do with them. But hard red winter wheat is your highest protein, and it's probably got the greatest nutritional profile. Hard white winter wheat is a little bit less bran, still dense with nutrients, but it's gives you a softer, it rises a little bit more, and I blend those two a lot. But I'm a hearty bread guy. I like hearty, thick,
Rustic.
chewy, crusty breads, so I use hard red winter wheat a lot. But I do mix in hard white wheat, and then pastry flour. And you can buy this from Azure, probably from Palouse. Soft white spring wheat is what commercially is milled for pastry flour. So
Okay.
soft white spring wheat will give you really light, fluffy baked goods, but you're still getting nutrition.
Okay. Now, Gary, Jane Doe is going to buy, say, a pound of hard red white. I'm sorry, hard red and hard white. It just grind, and then the recipe calls for a cup of all-purpose flour. Just do half and half. What would be the ratio, or do you
It's all, if the recipe calls for all purpose, then just use the white wheat.
just use the white? Okay.
But
Uh,
and if you want real all-purpose flour, just get a little sifter and sift out some of that bran so that the bran is what keeps the gluten from rising as much, because those little those bran fibers, they will impede that growth a little bit. They're really healthy for you, and they're really good for your digestive tract. But if you really want a all-purpose type of texture, then sift your wheat.
Okay, and I've got my sifters that I got from you all. They look like
Yeah.
like you just shake them back and forth, super
Yeah,
easy.
yeah, super easy.
I do wanna there's 2 more things and then I will let you go. Number 1, and we mentioned it on the first podcast, but if somebody gets their grain mill and they grind their own flour and they're making their bread, that is superior to someone who has a sourdough starter and is making sourdough bread with wild yeast with store-bought flour.
Yes, because you can use fresh flours with sourdough as well. And I won't say that they're not a better alternative, because it is. Sourdough is a better alternative if you're doing store-bought flour. But you can do sourdough with all of your fresh flours as well.
Okay, now you said sourdough is a better alternative if you're using store-bought flour.
To regular yeast, yes.
Oh, right. Okay, but overall for bread that you're making for your family, by far, it's anything you make with freshly milled flour, regardless of the yeast.
Yeah, because it's the yeast is the agent that's going to give you the rise. Sourdough is a more natural form of that, but really the nutrition is coming from the flour you're using.
Okay, that's right. Okay, now I did want to you to end on this because if someone's on your site and they see the Bosch mixer, I've got one. I didn't fully understand. Can you, in a nutshell, explain how the Bosch mixer, which is I have the white, but it's like a big bowl and you can see everything. I just thought it was for bigger batch, more hardy and sturdy for the job, but it's actually like a bread machine.
If you have 45 seconds, I'll give you the history.
All right.
The man who started the Magic Mill Company, and he started in 74, I joined it in 79, and then we've evolved into what we are now. He bought the Magic Mill Grain Company out of Filer, Idaho. Number one selling grain mill in the world at the time. And then he thought, now what do I do? My wife wanted a grain mill. I ended up buying the company. How do I sell grain mills? And he realized the only reason people mill fresh flour is to make bread or other baked goods. So he thought, all right. So he did a lot of research. And you know who James Beard is, the godfather of American cooking?
Yeah.
James Beard had tested a Bosch mixer and called it the only bread machine. This is a direct quote: the only bread machine or the only kitchen machine in the world serious about making bread. This man flew to Germany, Bosch headquarters, which is a nonprofit foundation established. Robert Bosch was a contemporary of Ford and Edison. That's how long the Bosch company goes back. The world's largest privately held company today. He knocked on their door in Stuttgart headquarters, not literally, but went there and said, I'd like to sell your Bosch mixer exclusively in the US. And they shook hands on a deal, and that handshake lasted 11 years. And today we have a contract, but it's the same thing. The Bosch is the number one rated kitchen machine in the world since 1954. And it's the only machine serious about making bread. The bottom drive and the open bowl, and now the things we've created for it, the cake paddles, the cookie paddles, the bowl scraper, the dough hooks, all of those things, you can do as little as 1 pound little ball of dough for a pizza up to 14 pounds of dough in one kneading.
Well,
So
and also, Gary, you can take one egg white and with those what do you call them? The little whisk attached
meringue, yeah, you-
over a cup of meringue from one egg white.
yeah, almost a cup and a half of meringue from one egg white. But you can also make over 300 cookies in one batch.
Oh
I mean,
yes.
it's just an incredible design with that tubular design along the bottom, and those wire whips will whisk anything. There's nothing that will whip cream better, whip eggs into meringue better, and yet you can still do 14 pounds of dough.
It is an amazing machine, and I think everyone does need to know there's a slight learning curve. You have to learn, and
Lots of videos out there,
yeah,
including some of the things that you have put out there that help people. It's a quick learn, but it is a learning curve. Most people they're familiar with the top drive KitchenAid, that the head comes over the bowl and goes down.
yeah. And I do want to ask you this: for those who say, "Hey, I'm going to get the mill whenever I can snag one," and I just want to use a bread machine, is that okay?
Bread machines are wonderful. We used to sell one. We used to sell the Zojirushi out of Japan, which is still probably the premier automatic bread machine on the market. I would suggest that if somebody really wants a good bread machine, Zojirushi is one of the premier ones. They're robust, they handle whole grains well, and they will bake a really nice 1 pound, sometimes up to 2 pound loaf of bread.
Okay, I'm so glad that you told me because I figured that it would be Zojirishi. That's a great name. So, winding this up, am I correct in saying to all of those busy moms who want to make the best bread ever, get your grain mill, go ahead and get on the list because you're already backed out. That when
Well, we still have some as of this week, I think, and we just got notice this morning, and they are shipping Friday the next load of bamboo ships, but that's 3 to 4 weeks for it to get here.
okay, if somebody wants one by the time they're listening to this, it'll be 2 to 3 weeks. Just check the website and can they get on the waiting list?
I think they do. Excuse me, they do have a way to get on a waiting list. Yes.
Okay. All right. So if you're serious, the least expensive and the easiest way is to get your grain mill, gets maybe a pound, half a pound, however you can get it from where we're going to link on the show notes, and it will be organic. You're gonna get your berries, your hard white, hard red, and then you're going to grind it, and you're going to use a bread machine to do all the work. So that's quick, that's easy, but it's healthy. Is that? I mean,
That's saying it in a nutshell. I'll tell you another way. We used to be in direct sales in this business all the way up until 1991. We were a direct sales business. If you wanted to buy a mill and a Bosch, You went to a home party and you watched the demonstration and they think you wear. It was just like Tupperware until 1991.
Okay.
And then now we start selling to stores and, websites changed everybody's world. But we would teach and show them how if you got home, even if it's a working mom, a working dad, whoever is going to fix the meal when they get home, okay? You got home from work at 5 o'clock and you got 20 minutes of time. You can mill grain, mix it into bread dough, put it in loaf pans, and then wait 30 minutes and 30 minutes to bake. An hour and 15 minutes, you can have fresh bread out of the oven anytime you want it.
Do you have, is that your recipe that's on the
No,
blog?
that's just what we call the foolproof bread recipe.
Okay, we're going to put that on the show notes too.
From grinding to out of the oven, hour,
Hour.
20 minutes max.
So really, the bread machine, it's going to be the same. It's just how you want it. It's going to be take at least that amount of time.
And bread machines generally bake overnight. They mix and bake overnight.
Okay. So basically you have options. There's no best way, but there are different ways to give your family the very, very, very best. Oh my goodness, Gary, I could talk forever. Is there
I know. I just love talking with you, Jamie. This is an interesting, it's my passion for, without giving away my 73 years of age, it's my passion for the last 40 plus years. And it's just something that I think we just need to pay attention to what we're putting in our bodies. We just do.
if eating the way you eat makes you, if you just said you were 73 and anybody watching, my goodness, you don't look a day over 63. So if you want to attribute that to the bread and living a good life, then my goodness, we all need to have what you're having.
Well, I grew up in a family that my mom made us. There were 5 boys in my family, no girls, just boys. So when it was time for cracked wheat cereal in the morning, or if she wanted to make bread, the boys got to hand crank the stone mill.
That's why you're an expert. You've been doing it so long.
A long time.
I love this. And Gary, thank you. And I hope everyone will go check out the show notes, go to Nutrimill, get one of these beauties. And I will say, if anybody were to get one of these and for some reason didn't like it, you could turn around and probably sell this for more.
Right now you can.
Hot commodity. I mean, when I initially got mine, they were like it's sold out, but then they would come back on. So these are, if you want it, grab it. So
Yeah. So I appreciate always talking with you. You're wonderful. Thank you.
thank you,
If
Gary.
anything you ever need from me, Jamie, just reach out.
I sure will. You have a great rest of your day. And to all of you watching and listening, until next time, have a fabulous rest of your day. Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Savvy Cast. If you'll take the time to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, that would mean so much. As always, thank you for listening and have a blessed day.